What happens next in India's big Dangal? The protesting wrestlers have reported back to their government jobs, but they say their protest is on. They still want Brij Bhushan arrested. The Delhi police, meanwhile, has recorded the statement of the suspended WFI chief for the second time. Sources are telling India Today that the POXCO charge against Brij Bhushan is likely to be dropped. In a moment from now, I'll play out the sea water poll on the protests by the wrestlers and give you a flavor of what the Indian public is thinking about this massive issue. But first up, here is the day's top story.
Camping at Jantar Mantar since April 23rd. Detained. Their camping site cleared little over a month later. In tears, they gathered at Haridwar last week to toss their medals into the Ganga. The athletes were talked out of their plans though. And now, when ace wrestlers Sakshi Malik, Bajrang Punia and Vinesh Fogart have rejoined their job at the railways, they have made it clear going back to official duty does not mean abandoning their protest.
कईयों के मन में भी आती है कि ये लड़ाई बीच में छोड़ रहे हैं या हम इतना सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं तो ये बीच में अपनी नौकरी ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं। ऐसा बिल्कुल भी नहीं है। हम ये लड़ाई लड़ेंगे और अपनी आखिरी सांस तक लड़ेंगे जब तक न्याय नहीं मिल जाता। बस जो ये होल्ड आया है ये इसीलिए है कि थोड़ा प्लानिंग कर रहे हैं कि आगे हम इसको कैसे बढ़ा सकते हैं।
Wrestler Bajrang Punia insisted that the protesting athletes have not withdrawn their case against Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh. The BJP MP accused of sexually harassing female wrestlers as chief of the country's wrestling federation charges he denies. The wrestlers say they are even prepared to sacrifice their job if it comes in the way of their protest.
इस आंदोलन के बीच में अगर जॉब कोई बाधा डालेगी तो हम जॉब छोड़ने के लिए भी तैयार हैं क्योंकि हमने अपना सब कुछ दांव पे लगा के हम ये लड़ाई लड़ रहे हैं क्योंकि ये लड़ाई बहन बेटियों की इज्जत और मान सम्मान की लड़ाई है। तो हम देश की बेटियों को जब तक न्याय नहीं मिल जाता तब तक इस लड़ाई में लड़ते रहेंगे।
हम पूरे देश भर में पंचायतें करेंगे जैसे उस टाइम पे करी। सारा देश आज तैयार है इन बच्चों के मुद्दे पे। उसकी गिरफ्तारी पहले है, सरकार बातचीत से रास्ता निकाल ले या नहीं बातचीत करती उनकी गिरफ्तारी कर ले।
A day before the protesters met Home Minister Amit Shah, farmers in Khap Panchayats of Haryana have set a June 9 deadline for the police to arrest Brij Bhushan Singh. They warned of intensified protests in the event if he isn't taken into custody by Friday. But the reassembly of the wrestler protest scheduled for Friday at Delhi's Jantar Mantar has now been postponed. Farmer leader Rakesh Tiket, however, stopped short of announcing a new date for the demonstration.
सरकार इनसे बातचीत करे। बातचीत शुरू हुई है। अभी उसके क्या रिजल्ट आए वो नहीं पता, लेकिन 9 तारीख वाला प्रोग्राम जो होगा, अभी इनके कहने से 9 तारीख वाला प्रोग्राम अभी स्थगित करा जाता है जो दिल्ली में था, और जो भी ये डेट देंगे उस पर सब लोग हम इकट्ठे होंगे।
Meantime, a team of the Delhi police has visited the home of Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh at Gonda in Uttar Pradesh. Investigators have recorded statement of a dozen people as part of the probe into charges against the BJP MP. With Kumar Kunal and Abhishek Mishra, Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, so like we do every week, we want to give you a sense of how the public is thinking about a critical issue at the moment. So the team at Sea Voter has put together various questions around the opinion of respondents on this protest by women wrestlers. I want to take you through some of the responses. So I'll start with the first question. What's your opinion on this whole issue of the wrestlers versus the Wrestling Federation chief? So here is the first response coming up on your screen right now. This is a general sense of how people are perceiving this issue. 62% of the total respondents who were surveyed said that this is a fight for truth about sexual exploitation. So 6 out of 10 respondents in this C-Voter survey think that this is a fight for the truth about sexual exploitation. 8% think that this is a fight for supremacy. Remember, a lot has been spoken about this possibly being a fight between the Haryana lobby and the Uttar Pradesh lobby. All that really is down to just 8% of the respondents. 19% of the respondents think the wrestlers are being used for political gain. But largely, and this is the most important number here, 62% of the respondents in the C-Voter survey seem to be on the side of the women wrestlers. Let's now come to question number 2. Who is speaking the truth? So coming up on your screen now, and this is broken down into 3 categories. At the end, you have the overall number. So of the sample that was surveyed by the C-Voter team, 67% are on the side of Sakshi Malik and the women wrestlers. Only 17% are on the side of Brij Bhushan. What we can do is dissect this data further by looking at how many NDA voters, remember these are voters who largely would vote for the ruling government, out of them as well, and this is a very significant takeaway. 54% of those who say they vote for the BJP or the NDA government think that they are on the side of the wrestlers. Only 26% of BJP voters are on the side of Brij Bhushan. So that is, and obviously amongst those who vote for the opposition, 3/4 of the respondents say they're on the side of the wrestlers. This is very significant because everybody's generally had a sense that people seem to be on the side of the wrestlers. It's never been empirically quantified, which is what we're doing right now, giving you a sense of 67% of the total respondents who were sampled. It's a relatively small survey. It's a weekly telephonic tracker done by C-Voter, but it gives you a flavor, empirical data-based flavor of the mood amongst the voters. And remember, this is a scientifically dispersed sample, so it's just the way you do an opinion poll or a post-poll study. So the sample is broken up, and I have Yashwant Deshmukh of C-Voter joining us on this broadcast as well. He'll explain how this sample has been stitched together. I want to come to question number 3. Are you satisfied with the action of the Delhi police? Here, 16% of the respondents say they are completely satisfied. If you want an overall sense, then look at the last figure. If you want to break it down further, look at the NDA vote, because this tells you the percentage of disaffected voters, those who say they back the NDA, but on this issue are not happy with the NDA's handling of this issue. So 16% of the overall voters are completely satisfied, 13% are somewhat satisfied, 19% are somewhat dissatisfied, and 40%, the biggest number there, is the number of respondents who are telling us that they are completely dissatisfied with the actions of the Delhi police. So, Mr. Commissioner, if you're watching, 40% of the respondents are telling us they are completely dissatisfied with the manner in which the Delhi police has acted in this case. Who's responsible for not finding a solution? The sports minister and ministry are blamed by 32% of the respondents. 15% say the players are being unreasonable, that their demands are unjustified, and the slow pace of the police probe is blamed by 37% of the respondents. So largely, the police probe getting the flack, and then people not happy with the sports ministry and the minister for not moving fast enough and helping find a solution to this. Do you support the arrest of Brij Bhushan, Sharan? So let's take a look at the responses on this question. 64% of those who voted for the opposition say they support the demand for Brij Bhushan. 43% of the NDA voters say they support the demand for the arrest of Brij Bhushan, and 56% of the overall voters say they support the demand for arresting the Wrestling Federation chief. So that said, let me now go across to our panelists, get the first set of responses. I have several more questions on this survey. I'll take you through the remaining answers in just a moment, but let's get some initial reactions. And allow me to welcome our guests for this broadcast, starting with Yashwant Deshmukh, the lead cephalogist at C-Voter. He and his team have brought this poll together. With us also is Ayaz Memon. Ayaz Memon is, I'm told, in London watching the match, which is really nice, which is where I'd rather be rather than in the studio, but such is life and life is tough. And at the Oval also is my colleague Nikhil Naz. Nikhil Naz hopefully cheering for an India victory. He's our editor sports at India Today TV. Rahul Srivastav has no such luck. He with me like the rest of us, and also Himanshu Mishra very much in Delhi, our national affairs editor. Himanshu Mishra is the editor for AajTak. He's with us on this broadcast as well. And Krishna Punia joins us, MLA and Olympian. Remember, she's a Congress MLA. So, welcome to all our guests. I want to go across to Yashwant Deshmukh first at Sea Voter to try and explain, as I welcome Karuna Nandi, senior advocate at the Supreme Court, on this broadcast as well. So welcome to all our guests. Let me go across to Yashwant Deshmukh first. Yashwant, can you explain to our viewers how big this sample is, how this was calculated? Because what your poll is throwing up is that 67% of the total respondents in your survey seem to be on the side of the respondents. That's a political headache, given that this is a BJP MP that you're talking about from Uttar Pradesh, because almost 7 out of 10 respondents seem to be siding with the women wrestlers.
Well, that's the wonderful part of this entire, panel study, that we know precisely where the voters have been voting and whom they have been supporting so far, and that's how we know from the cross tabulation where their sentiments are rooted. And honestly speaking, it's hardly surprising for me. I felt all along that probably people are not going to look at it much in a very political way. They are going to get affected by in a much more emotional way, and that is pretty much evident. Yes, the opposition votes are probably more inclined for the responses on the negative scale, but even the NDA voters have more or less said that, this is something which is not going well. This is something which they don't think that has been handled properly, and they don't approve of, and they wish that some justice is done, and not just done, it's seen as well. And this saying not just from the fact that they are looking at the allegations, they are also saying that, even if the allegations are false, and even if the justice is taken through in that way, in the right manner, at least the process should have been done proper. And that means that Mr. Brij Sharan Singh probably in the very first stage should have at least stepped down from his post and said that, okay, let the law take its due course, and if I am proven without charges, then I will come back at my post, and if not, then let the law take its own
Karuna
course.
Nandi, now this is a double headache for the government, because not just are they losing the support of those who don't vote for the NDA, naturally the opposition vote not with them, a very high percentage of NDA voters are also backing the wrestlers, and especially amongst the women voters who backed the BJP government very resoundingly in recent elections. There seems to be a sense of discomfort, and while this issue is being looked at from a legal perspective in the court of public opinion, somehow the narrative seems to be on the side of the women wrestlers. Karuna.
I must first congratulate Mr. Deshmukh for actually dividing up the poll between NDA voters and non-NDA voters in a world that has become extremely polarized. So that, I think, is a very relevant division. However, and I understand what this show is about, justice is not a popularity contest. In this case, however, we see that no less than Olympians who have won medals for this country in spite of all the challenges that they face, have come, and they are taking steps like saying they will be forced to give up their medals and put them in the Ganga. Now, in a case like this, where a number of wrestlers have come and they have made, and the facts that have been alleged in the FIR are similar. The way in which, and it's essential to the case, so I think it's essential for us also to start using specific language, because if they can suffer it, we can speak about it. There are allegations that Mr. Brij Bhushan has placed his hand repeatedly on their breasts, on their stomach, repeatedly on these various wrestlers, including a child, a minor under POCSO. And these kinds of allegations merit an FIR immediately under the law. Immediately. So the fact that they had to go on a protest and they, for so long, they sat and with huge public support. And even then, the FIR was not registered, contrary to law, contrary to 5 judges in the Supreme Court in Lalita Kumari, contrary to Section 166A, which says that any police official that fails to do this can have proceedings and an FIR against them. What does this tell us? And then we see visuals of the same police that failed to register their FIRs, dragging these women through the mud and their supporters, their necks on their throats, the kind of brutality that is not necessary by any means. So frankly, I think that does it take this level of injustice to cut across both sides of the political spectrum? I'm glad it has. But frankly, every single case of sexual assault, which inevitably is against a powerful person, a relatively powerful person, not this kind of imbalance, but a relatively powerful person, should cut across in the same.
Okay. Nikhil Naz, what's the sense you pick up by talking to wrestlers outside of those who are protesting? Which way is the Indian wrestling community leaning on this issue? Are they more on the side of the women wrestlers and their protest, or are there those who also support Braj Bhushan Sharan?
Rahul, it'd be unfair for me to say that there aren't wrestlers that are supporting Brij Bhushan Sharan at the moment. There have been a few wrestlers that even I've spoken to that have, in that sense, offered some sort of support to Brij Bhushan Sharan. Having said that, a lot of that is on the compulsion of, trying to stay within the system. A sportsman's career. And here I'm talking about wrestlers that are not that mainstream when it comes to whether it's media coverage or in terms of, the tournaments that they play, how much do they get coverage in mainstream or social media. So these are wrestlers that have to fight a daily battle. Now, can they really go against or be very vocal against the president of a federation who in the sense controls what happens with their wrestling career going forward? So maybe not. And maybe that's why you do hear a lot of lip service from a section of wrestlers. That said, I've also spoken to a lot of wrestlers who've not come on record, but are not happy with the way things have happened. Yes, they may not have any sort of sexual harassment charges to level against someone like a Brij Bhushan Sharan, but when it comes to mismanagement, when it comes to high-handedness of running the federation, I think majority of the wrestlers that I've spoken to, even the ones that have not been on the dharna, have been aggrieved. They've been not happy with the way wrestling has been looked after in the country. You had the wrestling league a short while ago that did bring in a lot of money into the sport, and then one fine day it was decided that let's get done with it. Maybe because the administrators or people that are running the wrestling federation weren't happy with the kind of shares that were coming in their pocket. So those are issues that I don't think many wrestlers are happy with. And even if I was to tell you about the amount of armed janta or fans of wrestling or sports fans in general, I've met a lot of them here in England. And the one thing that most of them ask me is that what's happening with the wrestlers' protest? What is it, that is being done? Why do we have to see wrestlers that we cheer for, being treated the way that they were treated by the Delhi police? So I think majority of the people that I've spoken to, fans in general as well, have been very worried when it comes to, especially those visuals that came out on the day of the Parliament inauguration when they were trying to cross the barricading. I think those visuals are something that are fresh in the memories of everyone that I've spoken to. I also spoke to a few former players, in fact, while here in England, a few former cricketers, and all of them said, we may not be following wrestling regularly, but what we have seen so far and the way the wrestlers are being treated, that's not how you treat some of our top level athletes.
Okay, you're there to cover the cricket. Let me not hold you back for the wrestling for too long. Nikhil Naz has a job to do, so I'm going to let him go. Thanks, Nikhil, for joining us.